Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fully Charged Show podcast. What we're talking about today is home energy, not just like where you switch your lights on or off or whatever. We're talking about energy independence. How can you become more energy independent? We're not talking about off-grid. We're talking about, all the stuff that we've covered on the Fully Charged Show for many years now, about batteries, about solar, about the systems that join all the different parts of a house together, the hot water, the cooking, the central heating, the energy storage, all those things. Really critically important, and it's an area that is developing at an incredible pace. And one of the companies that are at the absolute forefront of all these changes are Duracell Energy, and that's where we are today. And they are developing an array of products that will basically help you save money, essentially, on your energy bills, which is becoming increasingly crucial, as I'm sure you're all aware. And they're already installing batteries and the systems that surround that, and solar, and they're very, very involved in the domestic energy market, and they're also starting to get involved in the industrial energy market, which is also exciting. Another thing we cover in this podcast. So we're talking about dynamic tariffs and how you can make the most of that. So if in the UK we have tariffs that fluctuate from incredibly cheap electricity to eye-wateringly expensive, you don't want to use the eye-wateringly expensive stuff. You want to have a battery that covers those costs. They've developed an amazing app that really does help you understand how the energy system works, and two, how it's controlled in your house. Those things are going to be crucially important. So I would just like to stop waffling and introduce Mark Millar of Duracell Energy.
This episode of the Fully Charged podcast is brought to you by OVO's Charge Anywhere. Charge Anywhere helps you power your car wherever you are, plan your route and pay. You'll have access to over 34,000 chargers across the UK's largest charging networks, and more than 400,000 chargers across Europe. Setup is easy. Just download the OVO Charge app, create your account, add payment details, hit the road and start charging. There's no need to be an OVO customer either. Simply pay as you go or benefit from up to 15% off your charging with monthly boost packages. OVO's Charge Anywhere. Power your next journey with peace of mind.
So Mark, home energy, battery storage, stuff I'm really interested in. And then the first time I saw this, I went, oh, because Duracell, really well-known brand kind of around the world. And I went, oh, that's clever. Duracell are doing home energy. But there's a couple of more steps. Duracell Energy for a start, isn't it?
Yeah.
But can you kind of explain how what we see on the wall there came about?
Yeah, so, we've been doing battery storage now for just more than 8 years.
Right.
Duracell approached me a couple of years ago.
So just quickly, because your company is ProDrive.
Yeah, Pure
Yes,
Drive.
Pure Drive, sorry.
We're Pure Drive Energy.
Right.
So we were going 8 years or so, being in the market really took off. I would say probably 4 or 5 years ago, we started to grow the company and tweak the interest really of Duracell, and we had a synergy of a lot of things going on between us. So I had always targeted high quality products. I always thought the high quality product at the end of the day is going to win this market, but high performance too. And there were other things that we incorporated in the design. Installers had to like to install it. It had to look pretty for the homeowner as well. So it just had some things that we thought were important. So Duracell liked what we were doing and how our approach, and asked us if we'd like to design and make and distribute a battery for them.
Right. And I understand that and I get that, but then you've got quite a long history before that, because it is what attracted you to home energy electricity storage, because it's become a big thing now, but even 8-9 years ago it was really esoteric niche thing.
It was a niche thing, and I became quite a niche person.
Right.
I think at that time, with respect to friends, and wondered what the heck I was doing.
Yeah.
And I had this obsession, and I think partly it's because I'd just been to China. I'd worked and lived in China and built a factory there for an American company.
Right.
And then they kindly invited me back to their headquarters, which were in Boston. And that was kind of an easy sell for my kids, actually. So Oliver and Daniel were in their teenagers, 13 and 8. And it was an easy sell for them because the American kids that they got to friendly with in China told them that they had McDonald's in every high school. So they said, let's go, we're going to America. And so I was 4 years there at the headquarters.
Right.
So when I started to miss Europe, actually. I always thought China and America were very similar.
Yeah.
One language, one big country. They would never agree with that.
Yes.
But being European at heart, that's what I felt. I started to miss Europe. And when we came back, I also had a feeling of wanting a little bit more independence. I saw quite a lot of the world, a lot of America, China, and in between there as well.
And sorry, just the company that were in Boston, the headquarters, they were in the energy area. They were in electricity, or were they in more varied?
A bit more varied. They're
Right.
actually, so they were experts in manufacturing media. So that would be battery media. So
Right.
it's the stuff that goes in batteries.
Yeah.
So we got within the company, we got a really good idea. We've got about 80 more years of experience of understanding what
How
drives the
batteries are
performance
made.
of a
Yeah.
battery and how they're made.
Yeah.
And I got to see a lot of the Duracell factories actually before I started this, and lots of other different, the whole supply chain through that. And I think there was a drive about me that wanted me to be independent.
Right.
Okay, so and plus I had to do an extension to the house because I left England with 2 children, came back with 4.
Right.
So Lily was it happens, right?
Yeah.
We figured out what it was that made that happen.
You've worked it. You've got the connection now.
We've got the connection every time we move. So yeah, Lily was born in China. She's 16 now.
Right.
And Hugo was born in America. He's 12.
Wow.
So I had to build an extension, and what I did when we built the extension is I put batteries in there.
Right.
Okay, so and it was 20 kilowatt hours of home battery storage,
Right.
which at the time I think, so that was 12, 13 years ago. It must have been one of the first.
Oh, it was huge. Yeah.
Lead acid batteries as well.
And they were lead acid.
It was lead acid, so that's
Right.
where it was high quality lead acid.
Yeah.
And my whole home was equipped with DC lighting
Right.
and also DC heating, so surface heating, radiant heating.
Yeah.
I actually did underfloor radiant heating as well, and I very quickly learnt the limitations of a lead acid battery.
Right.
So
yes.
it went flat within about 20 minutes and
Wow,
didn't heat up the
really,
floor.
isn't it? Wow.
So yeah, so one of my big things that we came out with the lithium battery was it was a high C rating, so you can charge it highly without losing capacity.
Right.
That's one of our strong UPSs as we came into the market, and even Tesla then, they were half a C.
Yeah.
So we realised the importance of charging quickly, which is
Right.
even more important now because people want to charge on a variable rate tariff
Yes.
when it's cheap.
Yeah.
So
And you don't want it to take 15 hours because the tariff isn't that long.
No, it isn't.
Yeah.
So even half an hour, right? So if you
Right.
can, because they're half hourly metered, and and the tariffs the dynamic tariffs that are available are half hourly. So
Yeah.
you might get a half hour spot where it's minus 2p, for example.
Right.
So you want to charge as much as you can during that period.
Right. And that is really interesting, because I think that is an area that the general public aren't aware of, the advantages that are now coming out from the variation of the cost of wholesale electricity being reflected in your bill is something we wouldn't have known about 10 years ago.
And I think that's where the brand Duracell helps.
Yeah.
Because as much as, and we're developing software now, with the Duracell brand behind it, to educate the homeowner. That's a
Right.
big piece that's missing, we think, at the moment. It's usually being marketed to them through installers.
Right.
Okay, but if you can provide a tool, which we've developed, it's called DEPS. It's Duracell Energy Platinum software.
Right.
So the Duracell brand really helps, I think, with respect to, I think people understand it's going to be high quality and a high performing battery,
Yeah.
regardless of not knowing what a C rating is.
Because can you explain what a C rating is for our wonderful listeners? Lots of them are going to know.
They're going to know now, I think,
Yeah.
hopefully anyway, because we've been preaching this to the installers. So the best way to describe it is that what we have here behind me here is a 5 kilowatt hour battery.
Right.
An average home actually consumes 10.
Yeah.
An average 10 kilowatt hour. So if I put 2 of those together and put cheap energy in there,
That will run a
that'll
house,
run the
basically,
house
for a day.
Okay.
Yeah.
The key is to get cheap energy in quickly.
Yeah.
So 1C means if I charge a battery at 5 kilowatts, I'm going to fill that within an hour.
Right.
Okay. If I'm half a C rating, which most of the batteries are, okay, it's going to take me twice as long.
Right.
Or I'm going to lose capacity.
Yeah.
Okay, the batteries. I'm not going to have 5 kilowatt hours. I'm going to have 3.8 kilowatt
Yes.
hours. Now, again, it's not something that a homeowner would understand or etc. But it goes back to my analogy with putting a battery with underfloor heating.
Yeah.
So that requires a tremendous lot of power, okay, in a short space of time.
Yeah.
Okay, if you don't have a high C rating, the batteries are flat within about 20 minutes.
Right.
Okay, so so C rating is important, particularly now if you want to really reduce your bills.
Right. And I think there's going to be more and more people who understand about the way you charge a battery from having an electric car, because there you vary from charging overnight, which takes hours, to rapid charging and to all the variations of that.
Yeah, I think the concept now, isn't it, that if you charge a car in the early hours of the morning, it's cheaper.
Yeah.
Okay, not that it's always going to be like that, because as soon as you get more cars on the market, okay, it's going to become quite expensive. So that's where really then a battery becomes quite essential.
Yeah.
In that place. So now you can see that in the future in the UK, so it makes sense, it's cheaper to charge in the evening because they don't want to shut down the generators that generate electricity.
Yeah.
The windmills, they have to stop the windmills because nobody's using the energy. So don't stop the windmills and keep the turbine.
Yeah.
And so they're incentivizing people to use energy right now. But in the future, I think that might flip.
Well, I mean, if nothing else, if more houses have batteries and more people have electric cars, then the amount of electricity that you'll be using it at off-peak times is going to increase, which means it's not off-peak.
So it's not. Else. So you can't have like a two-tiered system when it's simple to understand.
Yeah.
So you want some automation.
Yes.
Right. That's okay. Now I've got. It could be at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Okay. It's cheap. I want to charge my batteries now.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that's what the market is right now. And at the moment, there's a lot of day ahead.
Yeah.
So you're given what the rates are, but these are guesses.
Yeah.
I think what the future is going to be is actually reacting to what the wholesale price is right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we're developing the software for that as well, to be able to automate that, and we do all the software here, and that differentiates us from any other competitor.
Right.
It's usually the energy supplier that does or has all that software.
Yeah.
And then they use API signals to communicate to the battery, whereas we do the software here. Uniquely, don't think anybody else does that. So for any energy supplier's tariff, whether it's EDF or whether it's an Octopus or whatever, we do the software in-house.
Right. And I mean, I think the important thing to remember is that, when I talk about how my house works and all that sort of stuff, I occasionally forget to say, but I don't do anything.
Yes.
Well, I do it once when it's set up. I set the timer so it comes on then and it goes off then, and because what it sounds like if you've never done any of this is, oh my God, so I've got to spend all day checking that my battery's charging when it should be and not when it shouldn't be, and all those things. And you go, no, I mean that's what the software is doing.
That's what the software is. And I think that's increasingly become more important. You have those first adopters, right?
Yeah.
That the techie maybe, and they want the control.
Yeah.
All right, so that might be just a profile of the person that buys them really early on. And they want to have scheduled charging. But every system that we check, okay, generally, if they're scheduling the charges, they lose out on a lot of savings because they miss, they don't adjust things for seasons.
Yeah.
The algorithm we use is a very basic algorithm, actually. It takes four things in place that are important. To how much I charge my battery when it's cheap. And that is, what's the weather going to be like tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay, what season am I in? So winter, summer, spring and autumn. What's my profile like on a Wednesday? Maybe, so what does that look like?
Right.
And when's it cheap?
Yeah.
Okay, it works it all automatically and charges the battery appropriately. So not too much in the evening or not too much. You don't want to charge it, let's say spring and autumn, too much because you're going to get sunshine the next day. So that's really important, I think, and really important for the way we design and think about the design of the battery system.
Right.
Some of our software engineers, we did some work with Heriot-Watt University in Scotland, and one of the engineers there caught my eyes. He now works for us, Vishnu, and he said, "What are you working on?" these days. What's kind of out of scope a little bit? He said, I'm trying to get the battery system to talk to Alexa.
Oh, right.
So I said, I quite like the idea. I said, quite like the idea of making that interface not only easy, it's automated, but also informative.
Yeah.
So person coming from work and they say, hey Alexa, how's the battery system doing? And you want it to be saying things like, hey, how are you doing? Yeah, have you had a good day? We're having a good day today. Okay, we've got 40% left in the battery, which is more than adequate for your normal Wednesday evening usage. You know, it's
I'd love to
things
talk
like
to my
that.
battery. That'd be great. You have 14.2 kilowatt hours. You're meaning?
Yes.
Oh, really? Brilliant.
And no need to worry. I've got it all in hand.
Yeah.
You know.
But also, actually, one thing we haven't mentioned so far is the role of solar within this. So, you know, I think, I mean, I'd love to just cover that, but my understanding is now, from experience of having batteries, that even if you haven't got solar panels, they're useful. They can reduce your overall annual electricity bill by, when you're using the software you're talking about. But then with the addition of solar panels, which are, there's a lot of people today in the UK who've got solar panels and no batteries.
Yeah.
And the combination of those two is where there's a really big change.
There is, and I think this is part of the education piece for homeowners as well. And I always, even installers, when we do, particularly at the beginning, I don't do them so much now. I dip in and then the team kick me out. Okay, but I like to explain things at a very basic level.
Yeah.
And I always use averages as well. So, and I think if they understand that, the whole picture, it makes them, you can make a more informed decision. And the risk that they're taking if they don't buy a solar panel and become less independent, for example. And I always like the numbers I use are really quite simple, because they're all 10. Okay, right. So an average home consumes 10 kilowatt hours of energy. An average solar install is 4 kilowatt peak, which generates on average 10 kilowatt hours a day.
Right.
So I need 10 and I generate 10. But the only problem is I generate when I'm not at home.
Yeah.
And I use the energy generally in the morning and in the evening. So on an average home, I'll absorb 30% of that 10 kilowatt hours energy I generate with my solar panels.
Right.
Which means essentially 30% saving on the bill.
Yeah.
Okay, I generate and I need 10. But if I put a battery in there that saves that energy in the day to be used in the evening and maybe sometimes in the morning as well, I double my savings. And
Right.
Ofgem will say something like 59 or 60%.
Right.
Okay, so now
Which
it's a
is
60%.
big chunk.
It's a big chunk. That's my independence from the grid. And that's actually, we have two mission statements here, and they still hold steady. And my first mission statement is to be increasingly independent from the grid.
Right.
Okay, because it's a form of freedom.
Yeah.
Right, and really we should be able to generate energy on the home, not only for the home, but also for transportation.
Right.
Not the other way around. I'm going to use my car to supply the house.
Right.
I like the technology. It depends what you want. If you want something, you can drive the technology to achieve that, but you have to make that clear. That's why our mission statement is to be increasingly independent from the grid. And the second mission statement is to be more self-sufficient here in the UK.
Right.
That's why I built this here. We couldn't do it all at once because we don't simply have the manufacturing depth and scope to do that. But we're on our way. We're on our journey to do that. So we should be able to get the materials from here, okay, and not reliant on countries far, far away. It's not green, for one. The carbon footprint's quite high. So we're on a journey with that, and we've made sodium batteries that have been sourced, where the cells have been sourced from the UK.
Right.
And
so they're manufactured in the UK?
They were manufactured in the UK, the sodium cells. That's a 5 kilowatt hour battery. If that was sodium, that'd be 3.8.
Right.
So not too far away.
Yeah. And if it was a bit bigger, it would be 5.
It would be 5.
It's not like 10 times the size. It's a
little bit bigger,
20% bigger, or
and a bit heavier.
Yeah.
So that's how it works. And so we designed the BMS, made it here, okay, and did the software between that and the cells and the software.
I just want to say
between
BMS, battery management software.
Battery management software.
Making sure we cover the 3-letter acronyms.
Yeah. So the battery management system is full of semiconductors.
Yeah.
And whatever that control the cells and also provide the safety that's required also for the system. So we're on a journey with that as well to be more self-sufficient here as well.
Right. I mean, that is, it's such an exciting area, isn't it? What I'm intrigued is how, because it's such an educational process in a way, because we've all just grown up where it's basically, what's your interaction with your energy supplier? Turn light on, turn light off,
yes.
Moan about bill. I mean, that's about as far as it goes, which for me was how I dealt with petrol. You know, fill car up, drive, go, God, that's really expensive, fill car up again. I'd never thought about where the fuel came from, what had to happen to put it there. None of it was relevant to me until I would say electric cars are the most annoying invention ever, because you start thinking about those things.
Yes.
I don't want to think about that stuff.
Yeah.
You know? And in a sense, this is the same. Once you have a battery or you have solar panels on your house, you become supremely aware of what wait a minute, this electricity is coming from hundreds of miles away down wires to my house. Why is that good?
Yeah, even from a security point of view, right? It's not good if you generate your own locally.
Yeah.
If from a centralised position, it's quite a target.
Yes.
You know, as well if it goes wrong.
If nothing else.
Okay.
Or also if the fuel can't get to that, if it was a fuel burning power plant. You know,
exactly.
It's kind of.
So there are lots of disadvantages, right? And I think where it all really started, because people were starting to become aware.
Right.
Okay, and that's more from an environmental perspective. Okay,
Yeah.
so these were our green warriors. Okay, they were out there saying that we need solar panels. Okay, and for a greener planet. I mean, and it's still important. I think people are increasingly buying on more an emotional level for independence.
Right.
Which is more of a feeling. I want to feel that I'm more, because it's a crazy place out there.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, it's not becoming more stable, seemingly.
Well, I mean, I think what we've just experienced in the last few years with the invasion of Ukraine and the shockingly instantaneous increase in electricity and gas prices, but everyone knew, I think this is a change. It wasn't wind turbines that suddenly got expensive. It wasn't solar panels that suddenly got, it was gas.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely, specifically that thing. And I don't think that was energy nerds noticed that. I think that was the general public understood that this was.
And that's where we had a surge of interest.
Yeah, did you then?
From that,
right.
I think that was a drive.
Yeah.
And you know, there is a feeling of independence, but also people want to pay less.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so it's you know, it's one of the biggest bills that they'll pay, and maybe the third largest bill that they'll pay. So that's becoming, you know, do I go on holiday this year? Particularly coming out of COVID, we saw a big increase, and people were making that decision.
Right.
We can't go abroad. Maybe we can go somewhere local and let's get the dust out of the tent again.
Yes.
And maybe we'll spend that money on a battery system.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So, I mean, you've noticed, and this is kind of what I wanted to ask, is about the general public acceptance of the idea of it, even if you're not buying one now. Have you experienced a lot of interest in the idea of putting a battery and maybe solar panels, etc.?
Yeah, and I think there's some stats out there. So that I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago, that installers were 20% of the quotes were going in with a battery.
Right.
Okay, and it's more like 80% now.
Okay, that's a big change.
That's because the homeowner's asking for it.
Yeah.
Or the installer's going, oh, by the way, there's this, and this increases your independence.
Right.
It doubles your independence from 30 to 60%, as we were saying before. There is still a big piece missing. There's a big education.
Right.
Right, is really understanding what are my savings going to be if I put a battery in.
Yeah.
Okay, and what's this variable dynamic tariff?
Yeah, so it's a complicated thing.
And is it always going to be? Is it sustainable?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So these are the things that, and that's why we created the depth software.
Right.
Okay, it's to take people on a journey, and we've actually got a retail. It's a Duracell energy store in Cheltenham. It's our first one. We were going to say that for all the capitals of the countries that we were going to go into.
Right.
And it was marketing, okay, but giving something back to the homeowners where people can walk in and get educated.
Yeah.
And I always liken it to an Apple store, because even if you've got an iPhone and you pass an Apple store, you might just sneak in and have a look and see what's new.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's the same for Duracell Energy. It will be, you know, so the Duracell Energy store. People could come in. They're actually not going to buy anything in there because it's too heavy, right? To
yes,
walk
you're not going to walk out
put it
with
in your trolley.
5 kilowatt-hour battery, are you?
You know, or 2 of them. You know, so what we do is we have the depth software where people can come in,
So they can see it operating.
They can see it.
Yeah.
They can put the postcode in. They can get a quote in 30 seconds.
Right.
Okay, and they can get to add a battery. Okay, and see what that does to the savings and the cost. They might have another third roof or something like that. What if I put solar on there? What does that do to my independence? What does that do to my savings, and what does that do to my cost? And I think this is what homeowners just generally, that's the level that they're at. And then if they want to go deeper, they can go a little bit deeper. So what's the best tariff on the market?
Right.
Okay, and that's going to be, it's not a very competitive market at the moment. Okay, but that will increasingly become more competitive as more and more of the energy suppliers start to adopt technologies that enable that.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's what we're seeing the big changes in, which you would know far more than me. But I mean, it is the fact that, 20 years ago, you paid your electricity bill. You had no idea when electricity was, but also I would assume that the generating cost of electricity was more stable because we didn't have renewables. It's renewables that have thrown a spanner in the works, in a sense.
Yeah.
Because suddenly you could have a huge amount of wind energy. There's no fuel costs. What are you going to do with all this electricity? Because it's the wrong time of day in the wrong place. So we're dealing with that. We're kind of catching up in a sense with that technology.
Yeah, and I think just generally from a homeowner perspective, if you're old enough, yes, remember the power cuts.
Yes.
So that's a big thing.
Yeah.
Right. So then people, you can't just put the light on.
Yeah.
And there's something else going on in the background here. And I think that's the first time they felt like, well, would that be the same with another political party? Would that happen?
Yeah.
Okay, that's their choice that they can make. That was the only choice actually they could make.
Yeah.
Okay, the choice now is different. Okay, now you can put your own solar panels on there. Okay, and your own battery system. So I think that's the first level of the awareness, is they can shut off the electricity to my house.
Yeah.
Right, it's quite scary, right? It was dark for a few hours or a few days.
Yeah.
And realizing that you really weren't in control. And some of our takeaways used to be take control of your own energy.
Right.
I think that's it's a key motive statement, which is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, because that threat still exists.
Yes.
And at its worst case, and then the other one is price increases.
Yeah.
Again, a key, you can obviate that by becoming increasingly independent.
Yeah. I mean, that's a huge challenge, isn't it? To in a sense, the long goal is to not be reliant on gas that we're buying. So, I mean, what would you say is the kind of main motivating factor of customers that you deal with? Because I think, I've been teased in the past, oh, Robert's gone all eco. And I go, I'm about as eco as my granddad's boots. I'm not very eco, but I'm interested in how the energy market is changing. But is it, I want to be more green or eco, all those awful, I kind of hate all those terms, but that stuff, or is it, I want to save money? Is it, would you say, is it the second?
It's the second.
Yeah.
That's the motive. That's the motive now. I mean, all those things are important. And it ticks all those boxes.
Yeah.
But most people now are procuring, on that, reducing their bill. But I think more and more on becoming increasingly independent. So we're getting a lot of requests for, how about, can we be off grid? No, you can't be off grid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Not in winter.
Yeah.
Not right now. Okay. Yeah. So there are different ways of being, but you still need diesel. As a backup. Well, that's not really being off grid.
No. Yes, if you're putting in a diesel generator, I'm off grid. Freedom.
It's going backwards a little bit.
You've got to get your diesel from somewhere.
Yeah. And if it's coming from an electric car, then you're relying on somebody else generating that electricity as well.
Yeah.
So I think there are some gaps in the product portfolio to achieve that, and one of them is wind. Right. We're not doing a really good job of that at the moment for domestic. Okay.
Oh, I see. As in a domestic wind turbine.
Domestic wind turbine.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And I think that fills a gap.
Right.
Okay, that should fill the gap.
Yeah. I'd love to have one at home, but I don't. Yes. There are some, but they're very. To get one that you think that would actually work here, they're not. They're really expensive. They're like a posh car cost. Aren't they?
They are. And also not very efficient at the moment. And they've got moving parts.
Yeah.
That's the beauty about solar panels.
Yeah.
Right. There are no moving parts. And how long is it going to last? How much are you going to have to pay for that? But I'm very interested in it. We hired PhD student that was doing wind turbine.
Right.
So it's an area that I'm really excited and interested about.
So do you think in the next 5 years there is the possibility of a functional domestic wind turbine?
Absolutely.
Oh.
And also, going back to Joe Public.
Right.
Okay, what do they want? Okay, you're saying, is it, but they want a system that works and that they can trust. And I think that's where we thought the brand helps, because that's our ethos,
right.
And that's our DNA. My background is in manufacturing, is also, I was responsible in the States. Globally, I was responsible for, and they had 9 facilities in the US, 2 in Germany, 2 in the UK, and 2 in China that I built for product development. So and the machines that make them.
Right.
So I'm really interested in, from a product perspective. That gets me out of bed every day.
Right.
Is what's new, what's cool, what is the art of the impossible with respect to that. But then packaging it in such a way that it makes it easy for the homeowner. Right, to make a decision, and that's where Duracell came in,
right?
Because the quality processes were so strenuous. Okay.
And this is the manufacturing quality of the batteries.
So they have like a quality department.
Right.
They come here, they audit us. Okay, they audit our suppliers, they audit our suppliers, and demand we do the same to a certain level. And my background is black belt in Six Sigma, it's continuous improvement. That was one of the great things I got from the States when I lived in the States. So I was able to talk the same language with them. And our last 4 ISO audits, ISO 9001, which is a quality audit, we passed with 0 non-conformities, major or minor, which is quite amazing really for a manufacturing company to get 0, but to get it 4 times in a row.
Right.
So I think Duracell have really strengthened my company. And people want to be assured that I'm going to buy something. It's quite a big investment.
Yes.
All right,
you
they want to be assured it works.
Yeah.
Okay, and also it has some flexibility moving in the future. So we're in charge of that software that does that too.
Right.
So you can be assured, okay, if the market changes, that our software that we develop here in the UK will also change.
Right.
To be able to support.
And you can update it. So what's next then? Because it's a really exciting and dynamic area. Stuff is changing. That's my basic understanding of the energy market.
Yeah, and particularly in this market too. So we're really excited about some of the new products that we're bringing out into the market at the end of the first quarter next year. So we've got our 3-phase commercial battery system coming out. Again, that's going to come up with some nice unique selling points into the market. It's going to be very scalable. We can go from 5 kilowatt hours all the way to 420 kilowatt hours.
Wow. So, and this is for like industrial
or domestic,
or offices
actually,
or domestic?
Oh, right. All the way through.
Right.
So it's one type, that can run through. I say, very scalable from 5. No one's doing that at the moment.
Yeah.
At that range, but also then to be able to scale it up to almost 0.5 megawatt hour. So very excited about that, not only in the UK market, but also in Europe. Europe's predominantly 3-phase.
It is, isn't it? That's what always a surprise. Like your average German house has got 3-phase.
3-phase, and Austria, and France, and anything new actually that's being built.
Right.
Okay, in the UK is 3-phase. It has to be right with all the demand that's going to increase.
Yeah.
And I think that I've heard about grants being offered as well, maybe to convert homes to 3-phase.
Right.
So that's where it's going.
Yeah.
So we've got the products to be able to support that moving forward. But we've also got a whole bunch of other products, and like a diverter and new heating systems, where essentially what we're trying to do, develop that ecosystem so people can see that on one app.
Right.
And also they integrate seamlessly with each other, so the homeowner saves more money.
Right.
So rather than having disparate type of products that don't communicate with each other very well, or they communicate a little bit but not very well, we're taking a real stride on that. We're taking a lead, on that. Is that because we do the software here, so we can.
Right.
So we don't have to wait for an energy supplier to think, how am I going to integrate that EV charger with that battery, with that heater, with that fridge. So I'm really excited.
Because can you explain what a diverter is? Because that's something I'm not aware of.
Yeah, so it's essentially, it's a really simple device. It's what it does is that any surplus or excess energy that either you're not using or goes to the battery can be diverted to a hot water tank.
Right.
So if you have a hot water tank, it diverts that energy into that. But again, if they're not communicating with each other effectively, then the homeowner's not saving as much money, and quite significant amounts too. I mean, we're looking at 20 to 30% savings additional when those systems are working together. And a good example of that would be your EV charger and battery when you're trying to charge your car in the early hours of the morning because it's cheap. But then your battery discharges because it just sees energy coming from the grid.
Right.
So there's miscommunication between the two. Really, it should be saying, fill my battery up as well. It's winter. I'm not going to get much sunshine. Don't take it from the battery. Take it cheap energy from the grid, but leave that cheap energy in the battery to be used in the day as well for the homeowner. And it has to know how much by as well, because you get sunny days also in the winter. So we've got quite complex that software, that algorithm that we developed here in the UK is also working in Belgium and is also working in the Netherlands at the moment. So that's a key part, making it easy for the homeowner.
Yeah.
Essentially, again, that's what it is, but informative.
Right.
Through the app.
Yes.
So,
but then I'm quite intrigued about the commercial aspect. So, you know, the one area that I've fairly recently become aware of is when you meet a company. There's a company in Cheltenham that I know that have a lot of, you know, way more solar on the roof of their huge warehouse than they could put on their house. And they're now seeing, oh my God, there's so much electricity coming out of that. And they don't have batteries, and they charge cars from it, but that's about it. You know, obviously, it's good for them because their main use is during the day. It's where they work.
Yeah.
So they're having really substantial, measurable savings on their energy bills.
Yeah, and the profile for a commercial building is quite different, right?
Yeah.
Because you actually use it when you're there.
Yeah.
Mostly. But also you can still benefit.
Yeah.
Increasingly, as more and more people start to use electric cars, you get more and more EV chargers. The savings get greater.
Yeah.
So, there's still a need to be able to have batteries, even in commercial buildings, where you can charge the battery when it's cheap. And again, you want a nice big inverter that matches the battery size. So when it really is cheap for that half an hour, 1 hour, okay, you're putting it in.
This is something I never thought about before discussing this with you. Effectively, you've got rapid charge batteries. That's what you need in a way for. But they're static; they're not in a vehicle.
Absolutely, and it doubles the savings, right? If I can, you know, if I can charge it, I fill that up within an hour.
Yeah.
Okay, as opposed to 2 hours or 3 hours.
Yeah.
It makes a massive difference to the savings. Yeah.
But then you do need them. Yeah. For a commercial building where you've got more energy use and a bigger battery, you need more
inverters,
a fatter wire to bring the power in as well as everything else.
Yeah.
But they're generally built with those in. Anyway,
yeah, absolutely. So it is. You want that also to be in plug and play as much as possible.
Yeah. And then the other one is, which you mentioned earlier, which I was intrigued in because it's one of those things you don't necessarily think about. You know, coming out of the kind of long history of the energy world we grew up in, but is, you know, when you charge a battery, it operates better if it's at a certain. It's within a certain temperature band. And if it's very cold, it charges slower, and if it's really hot, it charges slower. Tell me, because you seem to have conquered that problem.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Right, okay, so the general profile is a little bit like this. When you get to the top and the bottom end of the lithium battery, you charge a little less to protect it. Okay, that's a general profile. But also when it's, depending on the temperature as well. So particularly when it's colder. So the charge rate goes down and then stops working.
It can go cold enough for it to just stop charging altogether.
So it can discharge some of the batteries, but they can't charge again.
Right.
So a lot of them you'll see specified as not 0 degrees. That's the limit that it can charge at. So unless you heat them.
Right.
Okay, but then that uses energy.
Yeah.
So the batteries that we've developed actually, you can charge at -10.
Right.
Okay, without heating them. So you're not having to create energy to get the battery to work. So that's kind of a nice, unique selling point of our battery as well. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I'd love to just briefly go through the battery chemistries that are emerging now, because I've just been reading rather obsessively about a whole new kind of generations of batteries that are coming out in the next couple of years. But so in those at the moment is lithium ion, because you have mentioned this, the difference between lithium ion and
sodium.
Sodium ion.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, sodium sounds like salt to me.
It is. It's exactly what it is. And it's, lithium, I think if the top 5 European countries meet their 2030 targets of transforming into EV,
Yeah.
okay, there's not enough lithium on the planet to do that. Or it becomes increasingly difficult to get that lithium.
Yeah.
And we're actually working with countries to look at the sources.
So I mean, that's because I'm interested just to know clearly you are very aware of that. So where the materials come from that make the batteries is part of your job, effectively.
It's the whole supply chain, right? And where it comes from and what it is.
Yeah.
So that's why we've been working with sodium. Sodium is the 6th most plentiful element on the planet.
Yeah.
There's plenty of it.
Yeah,
it's
if we
in the
run
water.
out of salt, we're in real trouble.
We're in real trouble. It's going to be here for quite some time.
Yeah.
So it's, you can mine it, but it's also in the seawater.
Yeah.
And it should be cheaper. It's easy to mine because there's more of it.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's more plentiful. At the moment, because they're not using it as much, then it's a little bit more expensive. Right. But that also we found, because we've been working with sodium now for 3 years, and what we found with sodium is that, albeit the capacity is slightly less, so I was saying that's 3.8 instead of 5 for the same weight, for the same size, it operates at lower temperatures really well.
Oh, right.
Minus 20 at full charge. So there are just some things also that, some advantages as well.
I mean, it's clearly disadvantages from the point of view of transport use, because if you go to a bigger, heavier battery with less electricity in it, it doesn't help. Yeah. But if you're putting it against a wall, you've got to move it there, maybe, but that's it. It doesn't have to go anywhere after that.
It's less of an issue, depending on how much space you've got. And installers as well, they don't want to be, if they've got a certain requirement, which is usually it's a 5 kilowatt hour battery, is for an average size home, gives the biggest benefit. But if they want increasing independence, they'll go for 2 on an average size, 3-bedroom semi. We're talking about, but they want to be able to handle them in 5 kilowatt hours.
Yes.
Okay.
I see.
Yeah. So it's convenient for them. That 5 is a nice size.
Right. So one person can lift a 5 kilowatt. It's heavy, but you can do it.
But you can lift it. You know. But if I'm having to do 3 lifts instead of 2, so that's or if I have to, it's a 10 kilowatt hour battery, and again that requires lifting tools. It requires several people maybe. Yeah. So. I think the 5 kilowatt hour is
right. And is there not a safety advantage with sodium-ion batteries? Are they? When I've just been reading about that, they're less likely, under any circumstances, to do the burning thing. Yeah,
it is. We've all been the physics right, at school, and you put sodium in water, and it reacts. Right, it's quite reactive, and potassium's a little bit more, and it gives off gases, hydrogen, etc. So. Yes, it is. It's because there's more energy density in lithium than there is sodium at the end of the day. But they need protecting, and the protection they get is from the battery management system. You can put things inside the battery gels as well that make them safer.
Yeah. I mean, and with things like, I know that a couple of Chinese companies have announced they're going to be building cars with solid-state batteries next year. I've been waiting for solid-state batteries for at least 8 years.
Yeah,
We're going to be doing solid-state batteries next. So Toyota's going to do them, and Nissan, everyone's announcing solid-state batteries, but they sound like they're most relevant to transport rather than static, but I don't, they're much more energy dense, clearly, and lower weight.
I think if they make it work for cars, then they'll make it work for a lot of other applications, and I think there'll be several different chemistries that are going to be more appropriate for certain applications as well. So I think that's true. I think they'll all work. Yeah. Okay. It's just, at the end of the day, it'll be a cost. Yeah. A cost versus application and safety. All those 3 factors will factor into what chemistry is appropriate. Yeah.
But I mean, that's the other one, that the wholesale cost of lithium-ion batteries, if you see those graphs, of which I've seen many, of what it was, say, in 2010 to what it is now, is a remarkable reduction in the cost of manufacturing them, not necessarily the rest, the packaging and the use.
And I think that's a lot to do with the market. Okay, so what happened, I would say, is that we had, coming out of COVID, we had a big increase in battery requests. Right. So the whole market industry, lifted, and particularly in China, where most of this is made. Yeah. They're manufacturing. Now, in China, I lived there for 3 years. Okay, what they don't want to do is remove people, so they keep making it. It's like with the solar panels.
Right.
So the market ends up being flooded.
Yeah.
Okay, and the prices come down. So the mining hasn't changed.
Right.
Okay, it's those processes really haven't changed. It's more of what's needed in the market and what volume is in the market has driven that price down. So I think if we have for another increase in demand, okay, then I think we're going to get back to some kind of normalised price.
So you think the price could increase again?
It will increase, for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's
so get
how
your batteries
markets
now.
work. Yes.
That's what I'd recommend.
Don't hang around.
Yeah,
get your batteries today.
Yeah,
but I mean I think the overall trend though seems to be the actual cost of manufacturing them, just because of the scale that it's being done on and the amount of investment in manufacturing and all around the world. It's likely to come down to a more affordable level. I mean, when I first got batteries at home or a first electric car, it was eye-watering. The cost per kilowatt hour to make a battery was still really painful.
Well, it's that. So that's 80% of the quotes now, okay, are with batteries because homeowners are satisfied.
Because it's become more economically plausible. Yeah. Mark, what's great talking to you is that I feel the same enthusiasm that you have for what you do for a living. What your job is not like I've got a job. This is my passion. This is what drives me. This is what gets me up in the morning. I think it's very recognisable in this industry. I feel that's really changed. And I remember saying years ago, if I went to an energy conference 25 years ago, where it was people who do coal plants, people who've got gas peaker plants and nuclear, and you'd sit there and you'd see some PowerPoint. And I've been to energy conferences recently where the enthusiasm, the excitement, the possibilities that are being discussed, some of them totally harebrained.
Yes, yeah.
But there's just this excitement within it, and I really get that from you. So I just want to thank you for sharing that with us, because that's...
Yeah, no, thank you, Robert. I really appreciate that. And I know it's exciting.
Yeah.
Because it's the old industry, and it's very dynamic now.
Yeah.
And two of my eldest sons work in the organisation.
Right.
Okay, and they're interested in it.
Yes.
So they're excited. Young people, actually, okay, so I know through them and through their friends that this is a very dynamic, interesting area to be in.
Yeah.
And I also, it creates a nice atmosphere within the company as well. It's more of a family approach.
And you've got lots of people working for it. I mean, you've created jobs. It's just because that's a very popular thing in British politics.
It snuck up on me, but that's it, to meet the demand and support it. We're 80 people here, but we've also got offices and a warehouse now in Belgium to support the European drive there. And we've also got an office and warehouse in Africa too to support that growth.
Right.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All power to you, and keep charging.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep charging at low rates.
Yeah, and be green.
And I'm sure we'll catch up again with you soon. Thank you
Robert,
so much, Mike.
Yeah, you're very welcome, and thank you for your time and having me on this podcast as well.
Well, I really hope you enjoyed that. I mean, I think Mark is an extraordinary man. He's been in this sector for a long time. He really knows what he's talking about. I'm sure we'll hear from him again in the future. Really enjoyed talking to him today. Just want to say that next year we've got a lot of live events, and we're talking events in Australia, in Canada, and all over the UK. So very exciting year next year. All the links and all the information about the live shows are in the show notes. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching and supporting the Fully Charged Show podcast. Do tell your mates about it. Do please spread the word. Please do subscribe if you haven't already, because there are extraordinary people that we interview on this show, and there's going to be a lot more of them. So that's it. As always, if you have been, thank you for watching.